Hi, this is Rachel Bourne from The Shift Show.
And this is Lydia Wu from Whoops Did I Think That Out Loud.
And we're here at Unleash 2025.
We are day 0 of Unleash right now. What are you looking forward to the most?
So there's quite a few. At every conference, I love all of the best practice sharing, the benchmarking, the camaraderie. Like, it's a great community, first of all. Really excited to be here. The thing I think for me, there's a couple of things I just continue to noodle around related to AI, and particularly for me and my audience at The Shift Show. It's really about what are the downstream impacts of this AI revolution and what is it going to be on, the talent that is out there. So I'm hoping that I get some of the questions answered with that. And not to mention, the industry has been talking about skills for years and years and years. I still want to unpack that 100% too. So still, looking for some solutions there that actually work.
For sure. I think for me, one of the biggest things is really understanding where are the vendors' heads at in terms of how are they selling to customers? How are they articulating, especially the ROI cases, the adoption side of it? Because I think in the sort of old SaaS world, when we looked at it, a lot of times it's like, oh yeah, just buy us and roll us out and you'll be fine. But AI adoption is so dramatically different that you can't just buy it, plug it in, and cross your fingers and hope all is well.
Oh, well, 100%. And so you have, for the folks who haven't been here, what you're seeing is this, huge explosion of people who are solving one small problem, right?
Yes.
And at some point, so you have this proliferation, really, of solutions that are out there. It's not going to work together, right? At some point, if you are logging into an LLM for system A, B, and C, it's just not going to work. At some point, you almost need your own.
Oh, for sure.
And
sometimes it's so niche. It's like we take care of the communication process of your onboarding experience.
Oh, yeah, that's a great example.
Who told you this was a good idea?
Well, it is a problem that needs to be solved. No one has done it yet. My guess is this is going to be one of those. You have all the proliferation, you'll have the explosion, and then a consolidation that'll happen within the market. But that'll, especially for your audience.
It'll take a while. And especially considering the fact that we're still in a little bit of the 2-year, 3-year commitment. It's like by the time the pendulum swings back the other way, are you still going to be stuck in a contract essentially?
You have to have smart purchasing groups and, really hedge your bets that way.
Yeah. So all said and done, I'm looking forward to all the conversations, everything that everyone has to show and share. And one last thing that I'm really excited for is just hearing the real world use cases of how CHROs and just leaders in general in the HR space are thinking about AI and adoption and all that.
The real world and the practicalities of all of this and implementing it all and the human impacts of it are, absolutely the big thing.
Yeah.
Definitely. Tell us size of Unleash, just kind of overall, and the global to US mix.
So our European show is our flagship show. It's probably about 4 or 5 times bigger than this. This we've been rebuilding post-pandemic because when we hit the pandemic, we hit the wall, and so we lost our business and we had to start all over again. So I think there are probably 4 of the old team that you find inside Unleash today.
Wow.
Everyone else is new. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we still live in Budapest in Central Eastern Europe. They don't like being called Eastern Europeans. We now have most of our team in the UK.
Wow.
In and around London.
I think that's actually one of the most unique things too. But when you think about all of the other conferences, that you guys started in Europe and then kind of came this way, I think it gives a new global lens.
I love it. It's different lens, different takes on technology, what it takes to interact between human and technology and everything else. So.
Yeah. We were also, just before both of you showed up, talking about, we had a real appreciation that you had kind of the mix of the academic and practitioner and even technologist. It was just a really good mix of everything today.
Yeah, we like mixing it up so it's not just HR on stage. Academics, you get the rigor.
Yeah.
which is much needed, especially in our industry. And you kind of get thought leadership then around research and economy. So having the labor economist here, especially with all the uncertainties, it's really important. And then
Yeah.
we've started to win with some of the big advisory firms as well,
Yeah.
which is kind of gives us a new direction to travel in as well.
Yeah.
So,
Definitely.
I was talking to Lexi Martin the other day, and
ah,
she's a really good friend.
dear friend Lexi.
So Lexi and I go back to our busier days, if you will. So she was
Nice.
like, I appreciate Mark because he takes it down every single time and build it back from the bottom every single time from a programming perspective. And today I was here, I was like, I see it. It's beautiful. It's brilliant. And it's just like everything you want in a conference without the tacky sales pitches.
Good to hear. But I will say it's a team sport. It's I have an amazing team around me, so that's the difference. And it's a difficult market. Even though America is less complex and more homogenous, especially around job titles and industries, like Europe is far more complex. By culture, by
Absolutely.
language, by management models. Like we've got about 4 different management models, and especially if you're trying to force software on top of that, that's designed for an American market. That's why quite often it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been interesting, and I think this show we've got a few really important foundational things right, and we've been test driving things as well. So I think for next year, it allows us to build in a new direction and put something new. Even I've had people come up today and just say, why are you calling it the International Festival of HR? It should be you should get like some spray paint and spray out the HR and put humanity in its place. And there's like some big conversations going on around, HR reinvention, and what this world of work is going to look like when you take the biological workforce, which is weird to say that, right?
Right. Yeah, that's
versus the digital workforce, and how quickly the change is coming.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and actually, the other thing we were really talking is that you've set such a human tone today. We really appreciated that.
I think Max closed out quite well today, right?
Oh, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
My brain hurt. My brain cells are nearly dead. But it was so brilliant in how he broke everything down. Because I've always said, right now it's like HR's figuring it out with everybody else. And he just laid it out so beautifully of how the geopolitics, how the education system, how everything is sort of in a bit of a mess.
Yeah.
And we kind of have to figure out the humanity part of it.
Correct. Yeah.
Well, and we talk about
especially education.
Yeah, and we talk about systems all the time, right? Like it's all a big system, and I thought he really brought that home. Yeah. So, anything do you feel like you want our audience to know otherwise about Unleash?
Unleash?
Yeah, that we didn't
Well, if
ask
they're
you?
at home listening to this, they should try coming here next year.
Yeah, you guys.
That's a really good point.
And I
missing
will
out.
say, what I've learned on this show is that HR are not really in control of their destiny at the minute. They don't know where they are in the exponential curve. And I've had a chat with some of the Fortune 10 today.
Yeah.
And they're going to war because of AI. So they're seeing the change that's coming. It's in 4 to 6 months. Every 4 to 6 months, there's this huge change coming through. And that means that HR reinvention, HR departments are going to get smaller faster.
Oh, yeah.
And actually, the name, without being Armageddon or anything like that, but there's a new name needed for HR actually. So I've been trying to figure that one out. Somebody said to me today, intelligent resources. That's from Harvard. That's straight out of Harvard.
That's fantastic, actually. I like that.
And you still got the resources. And I was like, is that important, or could we not just call it talent? Can you call AI talent? Like agentic AI workforce, can you call it talent? And the future of work officer at Microsoft said, I think you can. So it's kind of Star Trek-y, some of these comments. I just never thought we'd be talking like this 5 years ago.
So quickly.
Right?
Or even a year ago, to
Well,
be
I was
honest.
going to say,
Yeah,
a year ago,
yeah,
it's just been
absolutely.
unreal. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
good. Well, thank you. Thank you for
Thank
stopping.
you.
Well,
Such a
thanks for
pleasure.
grabbing hold of me. I was just
Happy
saying,
and happy
I was saying
accident.
hello.
Well, this
Sorry
was
for crashing the party,
Well,
girl.
no,
No,
I'm
thank
so
you
sorry.
for saving me.
We are doing technically day 1. It is our day 2 of Vegas
day
and the
X.
conference. Yeah. But day one of Unleash, and it's been amazing.
It's an amazing crew. Like, you can tell the vibe of a conference by the crew that's putting it together. And they're just some
Absolutely.
amazing and lovely humans.
Yep. So we discussed grades for
Yes.
Unleash, and we sort of landed in the kind of A minus.
I would say A minus primarily. Like, okay, so my only gripe, and if you're the organizers listening to this, I'm just saying it was so hard to find the session rooms. I literally had to walk outside, get
That was
redirected back in again through a tiny little door in the wall. So yeah, maybe that plus the badging situation was a little challenging as well, especially with like the smaller door. But the content was amazing though.
The content, yeah, I really very much agree with you. And truly, my critique is I want longer sessions.
Yes.
Right? 15 minutes, you get people introduced. You know, I want like 30 minutes. That's my vibe, I think.
Yeah, it's like go deeper, like come deeper with me. I want to dig into a lot of things, but I think it was like overall lovely intro to a lot of topics.
So the first session was Unmasking AI with Dr. Joy.
Yes.
I know. So if you guys haven't talked with her or seen her speak before, she has written a relatively new book. I saw her speak for the first time at Co-Cool last year, and was really talking about biases in AI and how it shows up with intersectionality in particular. Her experience as a Black woman and how she really continued to discover this and study it.
I really appreciated the session. So this is my very first time listening to her and hearing her. And I just appreciate the very candid language because it's almost like a topic we've been dancing around. I was in a session a little while back where I was explicitly told by the organizers, you're not allowed to say the words DEI or bias. I get it. They have government contracts and government relations and all of that fun stuff. So we all have to do business. I respect the hustle. But at the same time, in a world where technology is so rapidly developing and in a world where all of this is happening, you can't not talk about DEI.
Well, and you're working at such a scale now and a speed, right, with automation and AI, that if you aren't designing this into your algorithm or your decision making with that, then you could amplify massive problems.
Oh, yeah.
And so I thought she brought a really human lens. So Dr. Joy is an A+.
Yeah.
Next sessions was the transformational leadership, and it was basically a panel of some incredibly accomplished CHROs. What were your takeaways from that?
I appreciated the perspective because I can appreciate the nuances every CHRO in this day and age have to live through, especially given where we are with technology, human, what does it mean to be human? Trying to figure out both for ourselves and for our organizations is really challenging.
Yeah.
One thing that I found really interesting though is we've been talking about change management for decades at this point, and the lens I got this morning was the fact that instead of looking at change adoption and sort of how we have traditionally executed change management, let's look at how change ready our workforce is, which I can appreciate because it plays into the idea that there are resistance to change in human nature in a way. At the same time, like there is a part of me that kind of goes like, are you just putting it back onto everyone else though, instead of like taking on a bit of the accountability on your own? So the jury's still out on that one with me in terms of like, do you execute change? Do you have a change ready workforce? Or is it somewhere in between where as HR, we learn how to work with the humanity in people instead of like the process efficiencies, the ROIs and all that stuff?
One thing I've been noodling on a lot, and actually Meg Bear had a post about this with, AI, we've got to go faster, we have to do more. And the other side of the coin was what the CHRO panel was talking about was change, like fatigue that really exists. And really their number one takeaway, like if you are a manager, right, it was check in with your people, right? Build those human connections and the relationships to kind of help folks through that. And also you understand, fundamentally, where are they on the change curve? Where are they in, some state of exhaustion? Are they dealing with aging parents or young children that have challenges, right? That one was a big one. And then the other thing for me, Lydia, kind of related to what you're saying, but if I was going to say there was one theme of really like the whole day, and I heard it very loud in the panel, was your personal agility and ability to adapt to change is the most differentiating thing you could possibly do for yourself, your children, to get through kind of this like future. And they drew it back to curiosity, kind of your personal creativity, growth mindset is huge. So I think those are things that, I mean, I even personally am going to continue to like work on,
Yeah.
just so we can kind of get through all of this.
For sure. I think, and this is going to be a bit of a detour for our audience, that's totally fine. So I grew up in an immigrant family, from Shanghai originally, moved to Canada when I was 10 years old, all of that fun stuff. And it's almost like in the education system that I was brought up in, it was sort of like, as long as you follow the rules, as long as you follow steps A, B, C, D, E, F, G, you will get to go somewhere. And I'm sure like there are folks out there who can echo with this, whereas I think we live in this world now, like burn the rule book, guys, like throw it out the window. It probably doesn't exist anymore, because it's about how adaptable are you to change, because the down cycle between change, it's almost non-existent at this point. Like you don't get to have a break anymore, essentially, given how fast everything's moving.
That's an interesting, I love that you bring up your family of origin, because I grew up, my family wasn't like follow the process, but my mom started out as an IO psych who became a clinical psychologist. And she was like, go get a good corporate job and work in the corporate America. That's like what you do.
Yeah.
And my dad had a view of, in particular, the term he would use is Dukes don't move. So he had 2 jobs his whole life, right? It was pretty classical for that generation. The first one he retired from, right, early. And then we had a family mutiny after he helped with all of our continuous improvement at home. We sent him back to work pretty quickly.
Love this.
Yeah, right. And they're going to love I'm talking about this on the internet. But I think he had a manager early in his life, in his career, who told him, Dukes don't move, meaning if you are talent that's worthy of being invested in, you don't job hop, right? But there's a big difference between staying in a career in a company for 35, 40 years, or moving at, at some kind of pace, experiencing new things, or, really what's, like Dr. Joy, talked about portfolio careers, right? Like, I love the burn the rule book, because the rules just are going to be really different.
Burn the rule book, guys. We'll light the bonfire for you.
I love that.
So I think there's some beautiful solutions on the floor. One thing that I found really intriguing, and I don't know if you're picking this up or not, or maybe it's just me and it's anecdotal. Like, if you like last year, we had a lot of AI solutions. Like, this is how we coach, this is how we learn, this is how we performance manage. And then this year, it's a lot of solutions around this is how we do all things talent acquisition with AI, all things analytics with AI, and maybe all things operations with AI. I am genuinely curious, where are y'all at in the total rewards benefit space, possibly, and maybe the other little nitty-gritty bits of HR that nobody really wants to look at?
Oh, total rewards, 100%. That was the one. I did think that was a big gap. I saw a few, though, like benefits administration. There was another kind of interesting tool that helps you understand sort of your total cost of the benefit package, and like helps you select it in a different way.
A lot of breakout sessions on the topic of the interaction of data, HR, AI, and the whole 9 yards. One of the more interesting things I've heard today, and Paul Rubenstein, shout out from Vizier, said this, it was like, don't worry about the people, and maybe don't design the solution for the people who are coming to HR. Figure out why those people are not coming to HR, and understand who those folks are before you start designing your solution, because it's really their attention that you're looking for, as opposed to everybody else who's already coming to you. So I thought that was really cool. I then had a chance to hang out with Kyle Forrest from Deloitte for a couple seconds.
Hey folks, Kyle Forrest, the future of HR leader at Deloitte, coming to you from Unleash America. Just finished talking about our 2025 Human Capital Trends Report, and really sharing that there are business issues that business leaders need to tackle. Don't view things as an HR only issue. The way to really drive business and human outcomes is to come together across teams, be clear on the outcomes you're going to drive. And for folks who are here, folks who are always looking at the technology is not the only solve. Don't think about the product and feature. Think about that outcome you're trying to drive, and stay focused on the business and human outcome.
And basically, he was sharing what Deloitte was doing around the human capital report and all of that fun stuff. So I think it's super cool in terms of the thinking around business and HR and just the whole ecosystem of how you approach the problems. So I managed to get myself into a Galileo by Josh Burson company session.
Oh, good.
They were demoing the latest and greatest of Galileo, leaps and bounds. So I did a review of Galileo back in November of last year, which isn't that long ago.
Oh, well, that's how I met you, technically,
We
because
met
I
through
was
YouTube.
like follower number 4 because I was looking up the Galileo
Yes,
tool
yes.
and just hate to brag, cutting
Follower number
edge
4.
right here.
Leaps and bounds in terms of what it's capable for now and all of that. It's almost like by spending that $20, I think still is $20 a month, you have a Burson consultant on your shoulder that can use your company data, but doesn't have to, essentially. So I think it's super cool. And I think they were calculating to date, they had about like close to 150,000 conversations since they've launched, which is like near impossible if you think about it on a human scale, if you're really to do consulting hours.
Oh,
But by
absolutely.
putting their knowledge into AI, they were able to do all of that. It was a brilliant session
So
that
good.
made you question life in and of itself. So long story short, what he was sharing was the idea of tool AI versus AGI. And if you,
Wait, define what AGI fundamentally is.
AGI stands for Artificial General Intelligence, and I think in his framework, the way he looks at it, was a beautiful and very academic Venn diagram. So it was essentially when you have a overlapping between like a task that can be done autonomously, reasoning that can be done at an incredibly higher degree, and like a sort of lack of human control. We're just gonna put that diagram on the side for you guys because I'm probably not articulating this properly. But at the center of it all is artificial general intelligence, which is sort of like what we envision when we talk about like robots taking over, Terminator, all of that fun stuff. It's not really fun.
It's when the
after that
computer
session.
and the machine becomes
Exactly. And what
alive.
I loved about his session is two things. Number one, the fact that he kind of went into carbon chauvinism, which is basically saying like, do you really have to have like a physical body to be considered intelligent? Super sort of like mental bubble gummy, as I call it. And then the other part that he went to is like, power comes with intelligence. The reason why we are sort of as humanity where we are is because of the level of intellect that we have. Now, when you put machines who are going to eventually be smarter than us, what is the world going to look like? And I think that's sort of like the big question mark that everyone's trying to answer right now. But I was observing the dynamics of the session. And I don't know if you noticed this. So there were moments when he was talking about the geopolitics of the world, how that is influencing AI, how that's influencing AGI, and how the economics of the world is influencing all of that too. And then during the question and answer session, we had HR folks who were asking like, so where do people go and learn about all of this? And there was a solid, I would say 30 to 45 second pause every time a question was asked. And this
So
for me was
thoughtful.
sort of like the one, super thoughtful, but two, this was sort of like the real life illustration of HR is literally figuring it out with academia at the same time. And no one has the answer. And I feel like we've been saying this for a very long time. But to me, today's session just played that out in real time. And I thought that was so fascinating.
I also went through this like doom cycle, right? The computers are taking over the world. Oh, and it could happen as early as 27, 28.
26, I think, was
26.
the
Oh,
earliest
God.
I
Yeah. I think I probably blacked out at that point when I was just realizing how fast this is truly happening. The other piece of it, though, is he is optimistic, right? And so some of this is going to be in that global political economy space where, governments come together and they create, basically the, United Nations or the FDA, right, that governs AI and creates these sorts of regulations. So, it's going to be really and very interesting path forward.
Day 3, last day. We
Day
are
3.
exhausted. There is no brain cells left whatsoever.
100%. So continued the same sort of humanity theme. I felt like learning and development took a much stronger kind of front and center today, which to me, is really important. I mean, I think there's so many new skills that people are going to have to develop as AI is democratizing so much about the kind of work that we do today, that, it just really played a much stronger role for me.
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, idea of AI is still very much there. I actually did get to geek out for about an hour with an employment lawyer, and we got into the nitty gritty of like the idea of how before the law used to be like, if you do this, we're gonna slap you on the wrist, so don't do it. Now it's becoming the idea of, hey, if you're gonna do this, we're not even gonna allow you to go to market with it, let alone actually do it and cause the adverse impact. So the fact that technology is changing the legal environment and therefore impacting the HR space, I thought that was like super fascinating idea.
Yeah. So we started out the day with Josh Berzin,
Yes.
the Godfather.
The Godfather. I will say though, having hung out with Josh like in person in a much more intimate environment, I think his content, at least for me at this stage, carries a lot better when you're sort of in an interactive space. So a lot of times when he's up there on the keynote stage, it's a download, right? So you get a high level and he always run out of time, guaranteed. But I feel like it's one of those things where you really have to go deep into every one of the ideas that's shared there to understand what does it mean to you, how can you use it, how does it impact what you do on a daily basis, that type of thing. So if you guys haven't hung out with the Person team, highly recommend it. At least have a conversation with them. They're all really amazing and nice people out there. So yeah.
And I think I would add, he also really kind of brought this theme of the rise of the super worker. When I did the analysis trends for 2025, it was an outlier. I mean, he kind of came out with a really strong statement around that compared to
Systemic HR too, right? Like he
True.
coined the term literally 2 years ago that everyone is now using. So
It is true. So if you guys haven't read that, we can link to it for folks. But I think that would be a really good thing just to kind of think through, and what does this mean to me in my current role?
yeah, for sure.
And then the next thing was the Shaping the Future of Work, Technology, Talent, and Transformation, which was a panel. David Green
Yes.
was the moderator. It was a good conversation. They had a general manager from the Future of Work, Microsoft, and head of people from SAP, and then NYU clinical professor of human capital management that were there.
okay.
I mean, it's a extremely highly qualified panel to kind of be talking through those topics.
Yes,
Yeah,
but
it
I
was just
do want to
those-
give a few solution provider shout outs because
let's do that.
I've seen some really, really cool ones. So first and foremost, Vizzy, Vizzy. If you guys have not heard of them, definitely check it out. She saw them first and then I checked them out. Honestly, I was more inspired by the founder story of what sucked enough for him to be like, yes, I'm going to build technology and launch it into the HR market about it. So fascinating platform, fascinating story. Love these guys. The other one, which you also turned me on to, is the AQ.AI.
I know, I thought they were really
folks
good.
from England, incredibly brilliant, been in the market for 6 odd years, hopped the pond. I love the fact that they have a research-backed, validated approach in looking at adaptability, agility, and taking it from the angle of the person, like the individual and not the organization. So we're not looking at change management, if you will, from like communication plan and off you go. It's really about the individual nuances and what I call like the mushiness of being human.
It also puts you in this like environmental context of kind of the world that you're working in. And then there was a topic kind of in there and the sort of personal ability around agility called unlearning. So they're going to come on the Shift show later, and we're going to talk about that. And I am now on a quest to unpack what the heck unlearning is. We spent some time kind of on the floor closing out any other conversations that we had. And this afternoon, we went to another panel discussion that was hosted by Deloitte with, basically, I would say there was a CTO, a CEO, and I think she was CHRO / AI, right, from ServiceNow. Again, another really good conversation. I also thought that one was a very good kind of summary of a lot of the things that we've been, thinking about and talking about, particularly around how it relates to humanity, how you create a culture of safety, psychological safety within your teams, where you make learning as a failure, right? Comfortable within your teams, right? I often talk about failing forward, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you learn from every single failure that you make, and eventually you will succeed.
Yeah, and I think one of the best examples, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of this, is the Edison thing of like, I found 10,000 ways of how not to do it, essentially.
And then the final session, which I think was the hardest slot of the entire conference, they talked about just reframing retention and the employee journey at L'Oreal.
And shifting the conversation essentially from sort of the reactive mode into a more proactive mode.
Yep. So Stephanie Kramer, you did a good job. You kept everyone energized and engaged. So cheers to you guys. So that's our full recap. Unleash was amazing.
Hope you
And
enjoyed it.
yeah, hope you enjoyed our debriefs. We'll talk to you guys later.